And hello. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is Dr. Dwain Woode, y'all. It is Monday. Oh, and it's hard to believe that it is, we're in the new month, y'all. We're in the new month. Glad that you're here. So if you have diabetes, or if you know anyone who has diabetes, hypoglycemia is one of those things that is feared. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you how to cope with hypoglycemia. What is it? And how do we deal with it? If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. And here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, your life, avoid complications, and live the life you've always wanted. That's right. Going to the next level, y'all. We're no longer allowing life to happen to us, but we are taking charge and making life do what we want it to do. If you're new, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you to the channel, welcome you to the community with a hand clap and some music. That's how we do it around here. And if you have questions as we go throughout the evening, go ahead and put a Q in front of that question with a colon. And so we will know that that is something that we need to pay particular attention to. Like I said, it is April. We are out of the first quarter into the second quarter. We are in the third day of the month. Can you believe it? It's flying by. Yeah. And I have been so excited about this past quarter. I've been excited about this year, right? Because remember, this is the year that I said we are taking charge of our health and taking charge of our lives. I completed our Sugar Busters. For those of you who were in that group, man, we had such a good time, didn't we? We had a good time learning about health, learning about sugar, learning about how we can improve our health by cutting back on the sugar. Pay attention later on in the show. We're going to give you some information about how you can get signed up for the waiting list for the next episode of Sugar Busters. So glad that you... So if you've been waiting, if you talked to people about it, you'll hear that it was a great experience. And so I want to give you the opportunity to do that. Hey, Florence, how are you? Welcome. So Florence, thank you for coming through and hanging out with us. Yeah. There she is. And so shout out again to the Sugar Busters, those of you who were in that group and participated. Yeah. So we are continuing our trek through the year, y'all. And there are so many things that that we're going to be talking about, so many tools that we want to begin helping everyone to put in their toolbox so that they can use them as the year goes on, right? Because remember, we're heading for a direction. We've got 3/4 of the year still left, and we want to make sure that we're doing all that we can. If you've not already done so, go ahead and hop over to our YouTube channel. Well, you're here if you're watching, but if you've not looked at any of our other offerings, make sure you get over there. I'm always pushing Diabetes 101 because it was a great time that we had back in November, about 25 videos or so that you can watch on diabetes. And then we had a section called Designing a New You. We did that back in August, where we went through and talked about what do we do to design a better version of ourselves, right? All those videos are out there. And then in December, we had, let's see if I can pull that up here. But in December, we had a series where we brought a bunch of guests on and we talked to them about how they are working in their space, what they're doing, how they're learning, and how they're using the things they're learning to help elevate them. We also did a section there on the doctor as entrepreneur. So if your doctors out there and you want to share some good information with them, go ahead and let them watch those videos. I think they will get they have a wonderful experience as they work through it. Okay? Yeah. So let's hop into what we're talking about tonight, right? Let's hop into what we're talking about tonight. We are talking about hypoglycemia. That's what we're talking about. Hypoglycemia, what to do. So with hypoglycemia is not only something that occurs in diabetics, right? Patients who have diabetes. Tonight, specifically, we're going to talk about how do we deal with diabetes are related to hypoglycemia, right? We're talking about that here. But it is not the only group of people that have hypoglycemia. You can have patients who are ill, and because of the consumption of energy while they're ill, they can have hypoglycemia. People who have some inflammatory conditions can have hypoglycemia. People who have tumors, right, that are producing too much insulin or consuming too much sugar can have hypoglycemia. So there are lots of different ways that people can have hypoglycemia that's not related to diabetes. We did a show back about 7 months ago. It says, are you hypoglycemic? And so we went through several of those things. Tonight specifically, we're talking about hypoglycemia as it relates to the diabetic patient, okay? So make sure that you pay attention to that. If you know somebody who's hypoglycemic, know somebody who's having issues, both of those videos would work. If they're specifically diabetic, this is the video that you want to have them watch, and have them actually come on right now. Tell them, hey, Dr. Woode is about to talk about hypoglycemia. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it together. Okay. Right. So hypoglycemia, y'all, hypoglycemia is when our blood sugar goes below a certain point where it begins affecting the body. It goes below a certain point where it's beginning to affect the body. And it can affect everything, because remember, we have said that hypoglycemia, or blood sugar, right? Sugar is what the body uses as energy. So if we're talking about having sugars that are below normal, then any part of the body can be affected. Let me say that again. Because sugar, glucose, is what the body uses for energy, any part of the body can be affected when we're talking about hypoglycemia. And there are some specific things, the specific numbers that we're going to give you here in a minute. But did you know that throughout the day, your blood sugars fluctuate? Yes, they do. Throughout the day, the blood sugars fluctuate. They don't stay the same. And the blood sugars are changing based on the amount of energy that you need. It's kind of like being in your car, right? And you put your foot on the gas. You don't keep your foot on the gas at the same, I guess, pressure all the time, right? If you want the car to go faster, you press harder. If you want the car to go slower, you press lighter, right? So you're always doing that. And often I'll ask people when they come and they talk about blood sugars. I say, well, you drove here, right? You drove to the office today. How did you get here? They say, hey, I got in the car. I said, well, when you got in the car, unless you put the what do they call it? The drive, and I'm losing my words here, right? On cruise control. Unless you put it in cruise control, right? And even then, the car itself is adjusting. For instance, if you're going up a hill, you got to hit that gas harder, right? And if you're going downhill, you better sure take your foot off the gas a little bit. And so the same thing is happening to the body as you're going through the day. It's using a little bit more energy, sugar, or a little less energy depending on what's happening for that day. If you got up in that morning and you just kind of hung around the house watching TV, then your body doesn't need to use as much sugar. But if you got up that morning and you were hitting it, right? So you got up, you had a meeting, first of all, 8 o'clock in the morning. So you had to get up, get out the house, right? You're driving in traffic. There's stress that's going on. You get to the place, the elevator's off. The elevator went out. So you're not going to walk up the stairs, right? So all of those things require energy. And so throughout the day, your blood sugar can change just based on your normal function, the normal function of the day. And a low blood sugar is considered a blood sugar below 70. Remember, from 70 to 99 is considered normal. 100 to 125 is considered pre-diabetic. And 126 or above is considered diabetic. So if you have a blood sugar below 70, then that's considered hypoglycemic. So low blood sugar, hypoglycemia. That's what that's called. Okay, hypoglycemia. Now, if the blood sugar, right, if the blood sugar continues to drop, then we get some things. Let's talk a little bit about symptoms. So things that you can feel in your body. And these are things that people talk about all the time. Now, if you've had someone that you know who has hypoglycemia, I want you to put yes in the comments. Right? Hypoglycemia, put yes in the comment. If you've had it or you know somebody who's had a hypoglycemia, put yes in the comment. Now, I've had hypoglycemia. In fact, I did a show here maybe within the last year where I was hypoglycemic on air. Right? I was doing a video and I felt hypoglycemic. And so I popped up my my Dexcom, I think is what I was wearing, or the Libre, I don't remember which one. But I popped it up so you guys could see the numbers, right? So hypoglycemia. So people will feel shaky, right? They'll feel anxious, nervous. And this is usually occurring because the body is producing some hormones. So the body, the low blood sugar triggers epinephrine, which is adrenaline, right? And cortisol. And you get that fight or flight, right? The fight or flight stuff, yeah. And so when you're fighting or flighting, when you're in that space, you're anxious, you're feeling jittery, right? You're on edge. So because of hypoglycemia, because the body produces those hormones, then hypoglycemia comes and, the hypoglycemia causes the hormones to be produced. And then those hormones cause all these symptoms that we're talking about. So fast heart rate, sweating, tingling, anxiety, right? And those parts of the symptoms usually occur when the blood sugar drops below 70. All right, so blood sugar is hanging out 100, 99, 98, 97, 96, and so forth. And usually it's when you drop below 70 that the blood sugar, that you start to feel those symptoms, right? Sweaty, tingly, anxiety, heart racing, and so forth. And that's due to epinephrine. Now, let me say this right here. For patients who, or people who are on medication, well, not even just medication, but if your blood sugar is high, if it's usually high, if it tends to be high, and all of a sudden you drop to, I don't know, maybe you go from a 250 down to 125, you may feel symptoms like your blood sugar is below 70. But that's because your body is so used to being up there that when it starts to come down to normal numbers, your body responds in the same way as it does when you have actual hypoglycemia below 70. But that doesn't mean that you're hypoglycemic. Because people will say to me all the time, oh, my blood sugar needs to be up at 150. My blood sugar needs to be 200. Because when I get it to 150, then I start to feel the symptoms. Yes, you start to feel those symptoms because the blood sugar has been high and now it's coming into the normal range. But that does not mean you're hypoglycemic. By definition, hypoglycemia is below 70. Now, if the blood sugar continues to drop from 70, right, below 70, you're 69 and is going down, when you get to about 40 or so, then the brain starts to lose energy, right? So it doesn't have enough energy to keep going. And this can cause some of the other symptoms that we may see, such as blurry vision, difficulty concentrating, slurred speech, numbness, drowsiness. And if the blood sugar stays low for too long, this may cause seizures, comas, and on rare occasions, it can actually cause death. All right. So if we look at those symptoms, again, so feeling shaky, feeling anxious, nervous, irritable, feeling jittery, all of those will come when we get below 70. But as we keep going lower and lower and lower, now we begin to get confused. Right. We can have seizures if it stays low too long. We can have blurry vision. We can have impaired vision. So those are the symptoms of hypoglycemia. Now note, people say to me all the time, well, I feel hypoglycemic. Yes, you may feel hypoglycemic, but the only way to tell if your blood sugar is actually low is to check your blood sugar level. I'm going to pause there. Right? The only way to know if it's low is actually to check it. Now, you may not be in the position to check it. So for instance, if your blood sugar dropped below 40 and you feel jittery and confused, you may not be able to check it. Okay? And that's understandable. But if you're at the house, you got people around you, right, and you're not feeling that way, check the blood sugar. Because that's the only way to know. Because other things can simulate having low blood sugar. Okay? So other things can simulate having low blood sugar. So the only way to know is to actually check the blood sugar. So that's what we said. So below 70, you can feel sweaty, tingly, anxious, and so forth. And then below 40 is when we start to have those central nervous system symptoms. Okay? So what actually causes low blood sugar? Now, as I said, we're talking specifically here about diabetics, people who have diabetes, but there are lots of things that can cause low blood sugar other than associated with diabetes. Okay, now we're talking specifically diabetes, and they're usually they come in one of three categories: either too much medication, or too little food, or more activity than normal. Too much medication, too little food, or more activity than normal. So let's talk a little bit about too much medication. Too much medication. How does that occur? So too much medication can either be that we've been titrating our medication up. So our blood sugars have been high and we've been adjusting the medication, and we have increased it to a point where now we're taking a little bit too much for whatever, conditions, situations we're in, the food we're eating, the exercise we're doing, and so forth. Right? Too much medication. This can occur also if we have taken our regular medication and we've not eaten the same amount. And we'll talk a little bit more about the amount when we get to the food, too little food. Okay? So the medication has to be matched to the food that we're eating or the activity that we're doing. Because if anything changes, then boom. So a lot of times what I'll see is people come to the office and we come up with a medication regimen. And they'll go home and they say, hey man, I don't want to be on that much medication, or I want to be better. I want to exercise. I want to do this. I want to do so on and so forth. Right. And so they change part of the parameters. They change what they're doing. They change what they're eating, but they still keep taking the same amount of medication. And when that happens, their blood sugar is going to go down. Okay. All right. And then, of course, too little food. And too little food, that comes right on the heels of what we just talked about in terms of too much medication. So there are times when people say, hey, I didn't feel like eating that much today. Or like I had somebody today who came to the office and he said, well, I took my medication, but I was rushing. So I didn't want to eat that much. And so I didn't eat what I normally eat. I ate less. But what had happened? He already took the medication, the same amount. And now he ate less. And what do you think happened to the blood sugar? Right? So the blood sugar drops. So that's too little food. And then the third one is more activity than normal. Now, this more activity than normal, people say, well, I didn't do anything differently than I normally do. And so we'll walk through and say, hey, well, for instance, that guy I was telling you earlier, right? He ate, right? He just needed something to get him through. And he went and he helped somebody build a closet. Put shelves in the closet. Yeah. So ate less, took the same medicine, and then more activity than normal, because he doesn't usually build closets, put shelves in closets. So any of those combinations can cause low blood sugar. So anytime you're seeing a low blood sugar, right? Once again, other than, people who have tumors and so forth that may be causing them, right? It's one of those three things. too much medication, too little food, or more activity than normal. And we got to figure out which one it is. So let's assume that we're doing too much medication, right? So we said, hey, we're taking the same amount of medication and we're eating less and we're having more activity, right? So how do we go about fixing those, right? Okay, so we're going to come back to fixing those in a minute, but I want to talk to you about food. Let's talk a little bit about food. And the idea when we're doing medication, and I'm talking about food specifically because that's one of the big ones that affects blood sugars, right? So when we're talking about food in particular, the amount of medication that you take is directly related usually to the amount of food that you're eating. And there are some medications like insulin, if you're on insulin, or you're on what's called a secretagogue. So one of the secretagogues is something like glipizide, glyburide, and glimepiride. Those are the three big ones here in the United States. So insulin or one of the secretagogues, those are the ones that are most likely to cause a low blood sugar. And in fact, the insulin, everybody thinks that the insulin is the guy that is most likely to cause low blood sugar. And I would beg to differ sometimes, yeah. I would say the secretagogues, glipizide, glyburide, glimepiride, are more likely to cause low blood sugar than insulin. Because the secretagogues, let me tell you how they work. So you can imagine your pancreas, which is what produces the insulin. You can imagine there's a faucet coming out of the pancreas, okay? And in order to get insulin out of it, you open up the faucet. And when you don't want any insulin out, you close the faucet back. All right, so a lot of the medications that we use are called glucose-dependent insulin secretors. Or glucose-dependent insulin secretion, right? So that means that when those medications go in your body, they sit on that faucet that I just described in the pancreas. And when they see sugar coming, like you ate something that has sugar or carbs in it, then they open up the faucet. And then when the sugar is gone, they close the faucet back. So glucose-dependent insulin secretion. Okay? Now, the secretagogues, though, those guys, glyburide, glimepiride, and glipizide, that's not how they work. They go in the body and they go to the faucet and they turn the faucet on. Now notice, they haven't seen sugar coming yet. You haven't eaten anything. But they turn the faucet on. And so the faucet is always dripping insulin. And what happens when insulin is in there? The blood sugar is going down. And so you get up one morning, right? You take your glipizide, glyburide, and glimepiride, all the G's. I'm going to just say the G's. And you go, and you didn't eat anything, and you go about your day. So all day, you've not eaten anything, and what's happening to your insulin level? Yeah, those guys, it's just dripping some insulin. And what happens? After a while, the blood sugar drops. Yep. That's how those guys work. So those are the secretagogues. And then, of course, insulin, we're giving you insulin, so the going low is possible, right? Because you're getting insulin. A lot of the others, they say that they're not supposed to cause low blood sugars, and usually they don't. So people will say to me, oh, my metformin caused the low blood sugar, or my, I don't know. I'm not going to start calling names, but they say this medication I'm taking, right, is causing my low blood sugar. And it is possible the combination of things will cause low blood sugar, particularly when you pair them with another thing that's insulin, right? So either insulin or one of the secretagogue. If you take one of those medicines, which don't normally cause low blood sugar or cause hypoglycemia, I shouldn't say low blood sugar, doesn't normally cause hypoglycemia. You put it with something like a secretagogue, one of the G's, or with insulin, and the likelihood is that combination can now cause low blood sugar. Okay, so whenever we're combining them, that's always a concern. That doesn't mean you can't be on them. So hear me clearly. That doesn't mean you can't be on them, but they can cause lower or hypoglycemia because you've been on those. Okay. So that's when we talk about medication or food. When we talk about activity, it's not uncommon for somebody to go out in their yard and be working out there and just lose track of time. And they'll come in, they'll have a low blood sugar, and they'll come to me and say, oh, that medication caused me to have a low blood sugar. No, it wasn't the medication that caused it. It was the fact that you took the medication and you went out and you worked and you didn't eat anything. That's what caused the low blood sugar. And so that doesn't mean that we scrap the medication. That means we need to be more careful in how we are functioning. When we're going outside, how long we're out there, right? Now, it may mean that we've got to lower the medication. Then we'll come back. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. Well, if you're out there, if you're out there, please drop us a message. Say, I'm out here. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up. If you're out there just listening, we'd love to know that you are there. And great time for us to, once again, say, if you have not already done so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit the notification bell and let us know that you are available. Or not available. Let us know, and we will let you know when we put new things up on the channel so that you'll be able to get those and you'll be able to participate with us. All right. If you are in the town, if you're nearby, and you're looking for an endocrinologist, you see our website strolling there at the bottom, Dwain Woode, Dew Center, www.dewcenter.com. And you can go there and you can find out information about how to become a patient of ours. If you're interested in changing your mindset, if you're interested in living the life you've always wanted, sign up for our mindset coaching, right? Mindset change coaching. And you can find that on our website, and that is on www.dwainwoodemd.com. And I'll show you that website here as we when we get to the end. And then I'll tell you about our wait list for the Sugar Busters, which is coming up again. And then for our new program, Ready, Set, Grow. Ready, Set, Grow. What's up, Jeff, my man? So Jeff is in the house. Hey, thanks for coming through. We really appreciate that. Always happy when you are in the area, Jeff, and thank you for participating and engaging with us. So this is actually a great place for us to get to our thought, not our thought of the day, but for our amazing question wheel. Let's get over there right now. All right, so you see our amazing question wheel. If you are new to the wheel has questions on it. Yeah, question wheel. And I'm going to spin the wheel and answer whatever question it lands on. I'm going to give you a nice, concise answer for the question that's there. I get 45 seconds to answer the question. If you're interested in getting your question on the wheel, go ahead and send that to us. You see all of our social media there on the medicine bottle. We've got Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and we've even got a Twitch account. So go ahead and do that. Drop us that, and we will put it on the wheel, and we will give you a shout out. When I'm done, I'm going to cut this out, and we're going to create a short and or reel out of it, and we're going to post it on social media platforms. I want you to get out there and say hashtag I was there, because you're seeing me create it here right now in real time. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and let's see where we go. Round and round and round we go. Where it stops, I don't know. All right, let's see where we're going to stop tonight. Sometimes I think the wheel has a mind of its own. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Oh. Looks like it's right between two. Okay, how common is heart disease among women? How common is heart disease among women? That's actually a pretty good question. How common is heart disease among women? Let's see. Since we get 45 seconds on the clock. How common is heart disease among women? Heart disease is actually one of the most common diseases in women, particularly when they get over or get through menopause. So let me say that again. So heart disease is very common. It's one of the leading causes of morbidity and mortality in women, particularly when they get over or get through menopause. All right. So I think I did that. Did I? Yes. All right. So that's our amazing question wheel. All right. Thank you. All right. So we are talking about hypoglycemia, and particularly as it relates to patients who are diabetic. As I mentioned before, there are other causes of hypoglycemia that we're not dealing with specifically in this show, this episode. I did do a episode called, I think it was entitled, "Are You Hypoglycemic?" And so we went through and we talked about multiple other reasons why people may have hypoglycemia. And so we've been talking here, we talked about the causes of hypoglycemia, too much medication, too little food, and of course, activity. And so what do we do? And we've talked here about adjusting, being aware of what's causing it. So if we're on too much medication, how do we fix that? Well, we got to go down on the medication. Sometimes I'll have people say to me, hey, I'm going to eat more so that I don't go low. Well, that defeats the whole purpose, because we're forcing you to eat to keep the blood sugar up, which is not what we want to do, right? We don't want to force you to eat to keep blood sugar up. We want to drop the amount of insulin that you're on so that we don't force you to do that. So that's the treatment of choice, is go down on the medication. And that is with the direction of your physician. I always say that you want to make sure that you're talking to your primary care team or your healthcare team as you're discussing some of the things that we're talking about. Okay. In my clinic, in my practice, I teach patients how to adjust their medication. All right. They'll tell you, hey, yeah, I don't want you to necessarily take exactly the dose I tell you if that's not appropriate. And you won't know if it's appropriate unless you're checking blood sugars and unless you're paying attention, right? So one of the treatments, if it's too much medication, we drop the medication. If it's too little food, then we may need to increase the food, right? But those two go together. So I'm not trying to force you to eat so you can keep blood sugar down. If I had a choice between the two, I would much rather the insulin, or not insulin, but the medication go down. And notice I changed from saying insulin because it doesn't have to be insulin. It can be one of those G's that we talked about, the secretagogues. And then if the problem is more activity than normal. So people at this time of the year, now they pick up their activity. During the wintertime, they weren't going to the gym. They weren't going outside. They weren't walking. And now they have picked it up, right? Because the weather is nice. They're getting out now. If that's the case, if they keep taking the same amount of medication and increasing their activity, then the likelihood is that they may go low. That doesn't mean I want you to stop the activity, right? People say, well, I can't go outside. I can't exercise because every time I exercise, my blood sugar goes low. No. That's not what we want. In that case, we may need to decrease the amount of medication again, so that you can improve the activity. Because remember, we want activity. We want to use the activity to go ahead and improve our blood sugar. Because I'd much rather you go walking than taking an extra pill or taking an extra shot. Now, for my patients who have type 1 diabetes, remember, you require insulin. You require insulin. So for you, if you're going to go running, jumping, skipping, swimming, any of those things, and it's going to lower your blood sugar, you may not be able to lower your medication. You may not be able to lower your insulin. Let me say specifically insulin, because that's what those are insulin dependent folks. So for you, you may have to increase the amount of food you eat to compensate for the activity. Let me make that distinction again. So my type 1 diabetics, if you are going to increase your activity, the activity is going to lower the blood sugar. We know that. So if you're on insulin, or if you're going to have more activity and you have to be on insulin, which you have to be, then your option is to increase the amount of food that you're eating and or adjust the activity. But for my patients who are type 2 diabetics, that's not the case, right? You can adjust the amount of medication you're on. Okay? Awesome. All right. So that's what we're going to do overall. But at the moment when my blood sugar is low, right, what do I do? And this is the rule of 15s. Rule of 15s, y'all. And the rule of 15 say that I eat 15 grams of carbohydrates to raise my blood sugar up. So 15 grams of carbs to raise the blood sugar up. And I wait 15 minutes. And then I recheck the blood sugar. If the blood sugar is still low at that 15-minute mark, and when I say low, below 70, then I eat another 15 grams of carbohydrates. And then I repeat step 1 through 3 until the blood sugar is above 70. Repeat the steps 1 through 3 until the blood sugar is above 70. And notice in parentheses, I say there, if you're driving, we want it above 100. So let me talk about the rest of this first, and we'll come back to that above 100. So we walk through that again. So I have a low blood sugar. Hey, my blood sugar is low. It's below 70. I checked it. It's below 70. Now I'm going to eat 15 grams of carbohydrates, 15 grams. And I'll show you, maybe not show you, but I'll tell you here in a minute what 15 grams of carbohydrates look like. So eat 15 grams of carbs, and then I recheck it in 15 minutes. Now I know somebody's out there and watching me and say, hey, when my blood sugar goes low, I feel ravenous. Like I want to eat everything. And that is the case. Because low blood sugar doesn't feel good, and you feel like you just want to pour all the food in your face. And if you do that, what will end up happening is your blood sugar will go up too high. So how do we do that? So prior to having low blood sugars, what you want to do is you want to decide, you want to package out what 15 grams of carbs looks like. And like I said, we'll talk about that here in a minute. So 15 grams of carbs, repeat it in 15 minutes. And then if it's not above 70, then you go ahead and get another 15 grams of carbs, and you go around that circle until the blood sugar comes up above 70. If you're driving, for patients who have diabetes, if you're driving, I tell my patients I want their blood sugar to be 100 or higher, particularly if they're on medication. Why 100 or higher? Because 100 or higher is a safety net. If your blood sugar is below 70, it can drop lower without you realizing it while you're driving. So above 100 is a safety net, particularly if you have just treated a low blood sugar, right? And you're about to drive. I want the blood sugar above 100. Okay. Does that make sense, everybody? Let's see. Jeff puts in the comments there. He said, hey, I'm type 2, no meds. What about out for a long walk or dog? What about glucose tablets Hate Libre 3, screaming at 55. Yeah, Jeff. So good point. Good point. So for patients who are not on medication, whose blood sugars do go low, and I'm going to talk about two groups and two sets of people there. So, and Jeff mentions the Libre, which is a continuous glucose monitor. And Jeff, I'm going to have to come back and do a show specifically on glucose monitors. So remind me of that, Jeff. I'm going to give you that task. But remember, glucose monitors, particularly at low blood sugars, can sometimes not be as accurate, right? So for example, at low blood sugars, if it says that you're 55, you can actually be 70, right? Which are just right at the cusp of low, right? And 70, a lot of people are 70 and that's normal for them. People are running at 70 all the time and that's not an issue. So that's one group of people who are actually having numbers that are in the 70s and their meters are telling them that it's lower, or particularly glucose monitors, right? So I say to people, hey, make sure you're checking. And then there are people who are not on medication who are actually having hypoglycemic episode. And in those cases, you've got to talk to your doctor about, hey, I'm not taking any medicine. What's causing this, right? What's causing my hypoglycemic episode? And particularly if you're getting down, into the low numbers. Okay, so make sure you talk to your folks. So I said 15 grams of carbs. What, for the rule of 15, what does 15 grams of carbs look like? And here, Jeff, see it right there? So glucose tablets. And notice I say see instructions because the glucose tablets can be different. Most glucose tablets are 3 to 4 grams of carbs per tablet. So if I'm telling you to eat 15 grams of carbs, a lot of times what I see people do is they have the glucose tablets and they take one. Well, if you take one, that's between 3 or 4 grams of carbs. I told you to take 15. So that means you need between 4 or 5 of those tablets in order to treat hypoglycemia, treat low blood sugars. So you get the glucose tablets and take 3 or 4 of those, but check your package to see what it is. Is it 3? If it's 3, you're going to take 5, right? 15. If it's 4, you're going to take 3 times 4 is 12. Yeah, you take 4, right? So depending on where it is. And for a lot of people, they have realized that, hey, my blood sugars are pretty sensitive to glucose tablets. And I can actually take 2 or 3 and still have benefit, it still goes up. But if you're using the rule of 15s, then it's a 15 grams. You can also use the gel tubes, right? Once again, see instructions. So those are the tubes of glucose gel that you just squirt it in the mouth. You squirt it in the mouth and it delivers the glucose and it tells you how much to take. Then 4 ounces of juice or regular soft drinks, right? So you can't take diet because diet doesn't have any carbs in it. So 4 ounces of juice. And we have, let me see, I don't have any in here, but those little juice boxes that sometimes the kids will have. So one of those is about 4 grams of carbs. Or 4 ounces of that is about 15 grams of carbs. Or 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 tablespoon of honey, or corn syrup. Those will raise the blood sugar. So that's about 15 grams of carbs. And then hard candies, jelly beans, gumdrops, and you can, see those labels. So those are all things that will qualify as 15 grams of carbs. Jeff, man, you are my man. I'm going to give you a fist bump right there. Can you see that? Here you go. Wait, right there. Fist bump for Jeff. He says Skittles. Man, yes, Jeff. That's my thing right there. Skittles and Starburst. But Skittles, yeah. If you watch the show I did when I was hypoglycemic on air, I think I ate Skittles. I think it was sour Skittles. All right. So those are your things that you can eat that are 15 grams of carbs. Now, one that's not on there, and I'm going to mention it, but I'm gonna come back and do an entire show on it. And let me see if I have. Hold on a second. So we're going to come back. We're going to do an entire show. Thought I had one. So hang on. I want to show it if I have it. Well, I have the old one here. I was actually preparing for a show, but this is a glucagon kit. Let me see. This is a glucagon kit. Let me see if I can pull it on my other camera. There we go. All right, so that's a glucagon kit. Now, this is one of the old style glucagon kits. This is an expired one that I have for the show that we're going to do. Okay. But you can use glucagon as well for hypoglycemia. Yeah, there you go. All right. Let's see. Okay, so adjusting medication if you're low. Adjusting your diet, right, up or down, and then adjusting your activity. So those are the three things that typically cause hypoglycemia. So when people talk to me about hypoglycemia, I say, okay, which one of these three caused it? Or what caused it? And I say, I don't know what caused it, excuse me. And so I would have to say, okay, it's one of these three things. Let's go. And a lot of times we're walking through and they say, oh, that's right. That day I didn't eat my normal 2 biscuits and with gravy and orange juice and whatever it is. That day I just had something simple, right? And I just went for it. And those are the days where people will also drop low. Okay. Hey Shanna, what's up? Shanna said, so good to see you, Dr. Woode. Thanks for stopping through, Shanna. What's up? Let me give you a hand clap, and there you go. And give you some music. So we are talking about hypoglycemia tonight, and just went through talking about what caused hypoglycemia, what hypoglycemia is, what it feels like, what are the symptoms, what symptoms do you get when it's below 70, what the symptoms do you get when it's lower than 40, right? So those brain things, right? The central nervous system activities or symptoms that you will get. Okay. And then make sure that we are checking with our healthcare provider. Make sure we're checking with the healthcare provider as we're adjusting this. This would be a great video for you to pass on to your family, friends, anybody you know who suffers with hypoglycemia. Pass it on to your healthcare provider. Say, hey, can you watch this and with me, or can you watch this and tell me what you think? This is what Dr. Woode is saying. Is this in keeping with what you want me to do? Now, let me say this, and I always say this for these shows that I do, is there's more than one way to do things. Right? So just because your doctor has a different method of doing it doesn't mean that they are wrong. Okay? So this is not me pitting you against the doctor with this video. This is a general video that talks about hypoglycemia. It is accurate, and it is a method of managing blood sugars. There can be other ways to do it, and your doctor may be using something else, okay, some other way of doing it. So make sure that you talk with them and get their input as you are going through. All right. Well, yeah. So, man, this was. I love this one. And definitely, we're gonna have to come back and do. We're definitely gonna have to come back and do another one. And of course, I hit the button right there, so you guys saw. Yeah, that's all my stuff. Yep. Okay, let's get back over here. All right. Okay. So here's a good place, actually, for us to do our thought of the day. So let's do that right now. So our thought of the day is this: ask better questions. Ask better questions. Now, that's not original to me. I picked it up from Shunge, I believe is what his name is. But I have a different, interesting spin on it. We often go through our lives and we don't rise to the level of our potential and our gifting and our calling. That word purpose, what is your purpose, right? And the reason that we don't rise to it is we don't ask the right questions. Often we are content to have the surface answer. We walk towards something, we have a desire, we have an idea, we have a thought, and we're content to just scrape the surface. But the richness and the value comes if we ask a different question. If we ask a better question. And often the question that we ask is why? Why did this happen to me? Why didn't that work? Why doesn't she like me? Why didn't I get the job? And maybe the question we should be asking is how? How can I change that person's idea? How can I improve that? How can I make this happen? So not why didn't my business work? Right? Because that sometimes is a victim thought. But how can I make it work? And that says, hey, I just need the data. Now you're sitting out there and you say, hey, well, how can I find out the business didn't work? How can I find out what I need to do if I don't ask the question why? And that's a very good question. But my answer to that is, oftentimes when we're asking why, it's not an analytical question. It's an emotional question. Because we've been caught up in the victimness. Is that a word? Of where we are. Why does that always happen to me? And I submit that we need to be asking better questions, and starting with the how. Hey, my marriage is falling apart. Not why does my wife not love me again? Why does my boyfriend? Right? But how can I improve the relationship? Knows the difference. Once again, my business didn't work. Oh, why didn't it work? Why didn't it work for me? Nothing ever works for me. No. How can I make it work? What do I need to do to turn it around? The first quarter has gone and I have not lost any weight. Why didn't I lose weight? Why can't I lose weight? No. How? What do I need to do? What resources do I need to bring in? What group do I need to join? What support system do I need? Notice the difference. My YouTube channel is not growing. Why is it not growing? No? How can I make it grow? What do I need to do to reach out, to connect, to engage people with my content? That's a question that I ask. Not why, but how and what. So today, I encourage you to ask better questions. Don't be content to use the surface answer. Dig deeper. Find the richness that runs beneath the question that you just asked and you will be surprised at the success that you will have and how you will begin creating your own destiny by asking deeper questions. And that is our thought for today. All right. Well, everyone, thank you for being here. I am so pumped. We're out of the first quarter. We're heading into this year. There are so many things that you are doing in your lives that I would love to hear about. Love for you to connect with us to let us know that you're doing. I once again want to give a shout out to our folks who were in the Sugar Busters with Dr. Dwain Woode last month. So 15 days, Sugar Busters talking about how to go about improving our health. That's Sugar Busters. If you're interested in getting on the wait list, you want to head over to DwainWoodeMD.com/SugarBusters, DwainWoodeMD.com/SugarBusters, and you will be able to sign up for the wait list, because we're going to have another session coming up soon, right? And you do not want to miss out on that. Right now, I am in the promotion and launching for our next big event for the year, and that is our Ready, Set, Grow. Take charge of your life and your health. Notice we're saying life and health. So sometimes we need some mindset change. We need some personal growth in order for us to be able to get over to taking care of our health. And Ready, Set, Grow is the program that we've designed to be able to do that, right? So I want to keep an eye out for that. If you were in Sugar Busters, remember, for Sugar Busters folks who were in the group, right, this is your sign-up time. This is your early sign-up time, and we'll be sending that link out. And for the rest of you who are interested in getting into that group, maybe make sure that you are keeping an eye out, an ear out to get that information. Over at our website, Dwain Woode MD, you can get there to see our podcasts. You can get there to see our videos and to download our free resources, 7 Keys to Success. Learn how successful people create the life that they want. So make sure you get there. Lots of different offerings that we have, and we are just so excited to come alongside and to help you get unstuck. And that's the key, getting unstuck and taking charge of our life this year. So thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with us. Go ahead and find us on the social media platforms and put hashtag I was there for the video that you will find that we created here tonight. And we'll see you next week at the same time, same channel, 7 o'clock Central here with Dr. Dwain Woode. Thank you, everybody, and good night.